Hello everybody, welcome back. Today I am super duper excited to share with you today my Make 9 number 8. If you follow me on Instagram, you'll have already seen it. But first, of course, welcome to all my new subscribers. Thank you everybody for tuning back in, those who continue to follow along on this journey with me. And so thank you so much for tuning in today. If you like what you see, feel free to subscribe. If you haven't subscribed already, leave comments. You know, I like chatting with you down below. And yeah, let me know what you think about this video and about the coat after you've seen it. So let's jump right into it. And today is a very casual day. Y'all see my hair all over the place. But anyway, I've been on vacation for the past 7 days, so it has been nice, which leads me into kind of part of the discussion for this coat. So you all know, if you've been following me, and maybe I'll pop up on this side a picture of my Make 9. And on that picture, you would have seen this pattern, the Sewaholic Robson coat, because I wanted a trench coat. That is what I wanted. That's why I went on my Make 9. I'll say this again. I've said this at the beginning of all my other Make 9 videos. And if you have not seen those, you want to see the other makes I've made in my Make 9, I will go ahead and link right up here above the iCard to the playlist, so you can see everything I've made throughout the year. I'll do a roundup of my Make 9 in January, probably that first video in January. But at any rate, if you want to go back and check those out, feel free. It's a full show and tell like this would be. And so I always say in my Make 9s that my Make 9, the basis of my Make 9 was to push me beyond my comfort zone, to make things that scared me or that I sat on the sidelines and watched other people make and oohed and awed at, at everything they made, and just hoped and wished one day I would get there. And so I purposely put things on my Make 9 that would push me beyond, outside of that sideline watch mode, and get into the game. I wanted to tag in and get into the game. So those who are watching, I appreciate all your comments and your compliments about the accomplishments I made in my sewing this year, and I'm so grateful for the growth. But trust me, what it was is getting off the sidelines, getting out of the bleacher stands, and getting onto the field. And even if you messed up, even if it didn't look quote unquote perfect, you tried. And so that is what this one was. I got out of the bleacher stands and got onto the field. There's some mistakes, but it's okay, because this coat is crazy beautiful. So any rate, I wanted to do the trench. That was my goal. And so around, I think it was September, you guys, if you've been watching me, you know that Cashmerette Patterns came out with the Chilton Trench. So Cashmerette came out with the Chilton Trench. And I grabbed the pattern here. And this came out in September, yes. September of this year. And so it was absolutely perfect. You all know I absolutely love Cashmerette Patterns. Let me show you the line drawing. Here's the line drawing. So very similar to the Robson coat, except the Robson coat isn't fully lined like the Cashmerette is. And so, yes. So I switched out the Robson coat for the Cashmerette Chilton Trench Coat. And let me just start with the fabric I chose. So the fabric, the main fabric here is a 100% cotton twill I got from fabric.com, and the lining, if you can see, it's dark, but it's a navy Bimberg, and I talked about both of those in my previous haul. And so that is the fabric that I used. The piping is just a regular piping I found at Joann Fabrics. I thought it was a darker navy than this, but it's not. But it's fine. It turned out fine. I used the piping bias tape, and I bought 4 packs of this. And this was 1/2 inch wide, 2.5 yards. And so I had 4 packs, and this is how much I have left of the final pack. I also purchased twill tape because it was optional to have the little hook up here, if you can see, and I'll bring this down shortly. And so I did buy a pack of the twill tape, which I used in more than one spot. The buttons I purchased from So Much Fabric, and I'll put the name again on the screen, but So Much Fabric, I'll put her shop down below. I had the hardest time trying to find shank buttons, really nice ones that was easily accessible. By the time I was putting the coat together, I didn't leave myself enough time. I wasn't in a rush, so don't get me wrong, I wasn't in a rush, but I wanted, I was thinking, because the coat calls for shank buttons, but these aren't shank buttons. And so I just couldn't find what I liked. And it was taking me so long to find something. And then I saw these on Roz's website. So I went ahead and just picked those up. And you needed 12. I only used 11, and that's because I did not do the cape. So if you notice on the back of the trench, a traditional trench has this cape on the back, but that's not particularly my style, and so I didn't want that. I also bought a pack of shoulder pads. It does have shoulder pads in it. Now the pattern did not mention the size shoulder pad to get, but I got this. It's a Dritz. It's a Dritz covered set-in shoulder pad. You get 2 in there, and this is for coats. So it's a 1 inch. So I just took a chance, and it worked out perfect. So what else? I did, let me tell you the size I cut out. Now I cut out a straight 22. And the reason being is if you get this pattern, or if you have the pattern already, and if you read through it, you know that Jenny built in as she puts in here, a moderate amount of ease. And so I noticed based on my current, I looked at the body measurements for the pattern pieces, and then I looked at the finished garment measurements, and I was like, no, I don't need to go out to, because normally I do 20, like a 22, then I might go to 24, 26 waist hip. But this one I did a straight 22 because the finished garment measurements were large enough where I didn't need to move sizes at all. And I cut out, if you all know, Cashmerette patterns come in cup sizes. So I cut out the 22 cup GH. GH is the cup size that I cut out. And actually I traced I traced every pattern piece. Here are all my pattern pieces. Here's the actual pattern printed, and then I just traced all the pieces that I needed. So let's get into the review. I will say, first of all, give yourself some time, give yourself patience to do this coat. There is a lot of steps and a lot of fiddly steps. And because I decided, the pattern does not call for piping, but I decided when I saw this pattern, I was like, wouldn't it be nice to have piping in there? So I added piping, so that took an additional amount of time. I would say in total, and again, I've been off on vacation, so take that into consideration. I didn't have to go to work. It took me about 4 days to complete. And I would say I spent between 5 to 8 hours in those days. So I would say a good 35 hours to complete this sewing. This is strictly sewing. This is not me tracing it. That took a whole nother gang of time. I'm just talking about strictly sewing. And it's because I was taking my time and just want to make sure that I got, the different parts right, because the pattern is labeled for intermediate, and it is an intermediate level pattern. There are a ton of pieces. And remember, I said I traced everything. I counted. There were 25 pieces. That is the most pieces I've ever used in the pattern, ever cut. And so, and then taking consideration, I also added in piping. And so the let me just show you the extra tools that I use on my machine to do the piping. What helped me do the piping is I hauled this earlier this year, but this is oh, you can't even see the writing. Let me take it out of the bag. It's a zipper foot, but I bought it from Sewing Parts online. But when I saw it on, because that's why I get my sewing machine parts from Sewing Parts online. They work perfect for my brothers. They showed somebody in the picture was shown sewing in piping, and so this is how it looks. So this is what I use to put in my piping, and so that worked really nice. And as for zippers, I'm gonna try it with the zipper because I have 3 different zipper foots, and but I noticed how close this got, that pipe got right up into that piping. The one part that I would say the part that took the longest were all the fiddly parts. So fiddly parts is what Jenny has, which I appreciate, which, I mean, it makes sense, but she has you do all these little pockets. You do the cuff latches. Here's the cuff latch. You do the belt loops. You have several belt loops. You have the epaulets, I think that's how you pronounce it, to do. Then you see this back facing piece, and I'll bring it up closer. You can't see that, but you do a lot of those fiddly small parts first, because obviously you have to attach them and sew them on before you attach the lining to the main body of the fabric. A couple suggestions I do have: be very, very, very careful in marking all of your notches. I did forget a couple notches. Well, I don't think my scissor went through both layers of fabric, because the Bimberg is very slippery. And so I noticed as I was cutting it out, like for whatever reason, I didn't catch the lower layer of my notch. So I would have to go back in. So make sure you mark all your notches first. The other thing I suggest is that when you're marking like pockets, darts, particularly where the pockets lay and maybe where the buttons go. And obviously you can place buttons based on your personal preference. You don't necessarily have to follow the guide on the pattern, but I followed the guide on the pattern and it worked for me. But one of the things I did do in advance is I marked the right side and the wrong side of the fabric for all those parts. For your belt, where the belt loops go, mark the outside of the fabric, the right side, because the wrong side of fabric, it don't matter, because that's not the side you're putting the belt loop on, right? So mark the right side of the fabric for parts like that is my suggestion, just so you can see it and you don't have to worry about pulling back out the pattern piece and everything like that. I did that in advance. I'm glad I did, because then, having to go back, get the pattern piece and mark it and everything would have been something. So I talked about the shoulder pads. I did have to unpick one thing, and it was the collar. By the time I was getting ready to close the bottom of the lining, when I put the lining in, the collar was on the opposite side. And so, when you sew the collar across the top, I sewed it inside. So if I turn this out, the collar would have been on the inside of the coat. So I had to unpick just around that collar and then re-sew that around. So that was one mistake that I made. I did, at the start of this coat, I did not have my backup machine back yet. So I did have to do manual buttonholes on my machine, which turned out fine. But by the time I got to these buttons, I had picked up my backup machine. My backup machine does buttonholes perfectly. My workhorse, when I got it back the first time, it stopped doing buttonholes for whatever reason. And so now that my backup machine is back, so that worked out perfect. What else do I want to say? Interfacing, I just used the Pellin SF101 interfacing, so I didn't use special interfacing on this at all. What else do I want to say? One of the parts that Jenny do mention is if you're lining, if you can tell here, my lining peeks out, and I'm thinking it's the type of lining that it is, and a combination of my sewing kind of skills techniques, because it does peek out slightly. She do suggest in the instructions, if your lining peeks out, to do a top stitching right down the front, and I did, but it still peeks out. So part of that is probably me not smoothing that down when I originally did it, so it wouldn't peek out. It doesn't peek out a lot, but it does peek out. I absolutely love the little shield on the front. Isn't that nice? And I made sure to put piping all around there. And there's piping. Now the seams under here don't meet, so that's not a flaw. It doesn't meet like that. This seam is meant to go in like this, and then from the back, let me just show it to you. It's meant to go like this into the side right there, and then there's the piping all the way down. The belt loop, this fits absolutely perfect. Oh, I wanted to show you the loop. So you do this, so you can hang the coat. Now, one thing I will do, then, because I will make another one of these. I really want one, probably, well, this is lightweight, and I'm in Texas, so I probably would make one where there's a cotton lining as opposed to the Bimberg lining, and probably maybe a little fun print or something. But, and I'll probably do, you know how they have the chain thing, the coat hook chain or whatever, I'll probably do that instead of this. But this was fine. This was this is what you use the twill tape for. And so here is, I use bias binding to finish off the back facing there, which turned out beautiful. I will say one of the things, oh, get a good look at that, the epaulette and the piping there. Beautiful. And I'll put up a video here shortly. One of the things I did do incorrectly, because I overthought it, is what I did. As you can see, I put piping around the collar, but look at this piece right there. What I thought I was doing was making them crisscross where it would be a point when I turned it out. And it wasn't, and so I wasn't going to unpick all that, and so it don't look crazy, but obviously, you know, that's all supposed to be joined going around, but who cares? It is beautiful. It is beautiful. I love it. What else do I want to say? I think that's essentially it. One of the things that I thought was very thoughtful in the instructions, so when you before you close the lining, you know, you close the lining, and I thought the instructions were beautiful for putting in the lining. Just if you get this, just follow the pattern. It is she explains it very well. Unlike my experience last year with my Simplicity coat, which was purple too. I did this coat last year, and I'll pop up a picture here. First of all, that coat didn't close all the way because at that time I didn't know about grading out sizes. See, you just learn. That's all. You just learn. But as I lose weight, I'll be able to fit into it. But yeah, I didn't finish the lining so great on that one. But before you close that off, what is very helpful, which I thought was a touch. I haven't seen this before. Obviously, this is only my second proper coat. But underneath the arm pit there, where the underarm lining and the main fabric meet right there, she has you put a 3-inch. You can use your lining fabric or some kind of thread loop there. I use twill tape. I just use 3-inch twill tape, and you just sew at each end, connect them, so when this is moving, it's not disconnecting and shifting away from the coat. That is brilliant. Never would have thought of that. And I did not have to do that in the coat that I lined last year. So I thought that was a really, really nice added touch. Very, very, I don't know, shall we say couture? But anyway, so that's essentially it. Let me pop up right here a video that my husband did of me in the coat, me wearing it. I had to do a little shimmy dance here, showing me in the coat, trying to show you the little bit of details here and there in the coat. And so, yeah, I absolutely love this coat. And oh, let me show you. It buttons up all the way. So let me show you. I'm going to put it on so you can see. Okay, so here is the coat on the belt. But look, there's room. It's not too tight or snug or anything like that. Absolutely love it. Absolutely love this coat. Love. This was a labor of love, I have to tell you. And this, I would say, was my most intense, time-consuming project. Next to the jeans will probably be the second, and maybe this bag that you'll see tomorrow. So tune in. Will be my final Make 9 item that I'll be sharing with you on tomorrow. But so far as time consuming and, you know, taking my time, fiddly bits, a lot of parts and pieces to the pattern and putting it all together. But I absolutely love it. So, and hopefully I've been popping up pictures along the way. So let me know what you think. If you have any questions on the pattern, let me know. If you follow Cashmerette, you've probably seen the blog post with different coats up. Go check that out too as well. But that is my review. That is my review for my 2018 Make 9 trench coat, the Cashmerette Chilton Trench Coat. Thank you everybody for tuning in today. And again, if you have any questions, please let me know. And thank you so much. And if you haven't, again, go ahead and subscribe so you will catch that video that I will be posting on tomorrow. Thank you everybody. Have a blessed day. Bye.